Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sean Emery, where we will continuously bring you closer to companies, sectors, and themes. This recording should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as a substitute for personalized individual advice from Avory and Company. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies mentioned. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. The gaming industry is one of our favorite industries in the world. The innovation taking place is layers deep, with form factor changes allowing new gamers to enter the market. The three main form factors today are PCs, consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, and the rapid adoption of mobile gaming as iPhones and other leading providers have increased screen sizes and have emphasized gaming within the App Store. We foresee another potential wave in the future as 5G, virtual reality, augmented reality, and streaming gain adoption through technological advancements. We have already seen traction in VR as Facebook's Oculus platform continues to gain adoption. Oculus celebrated its 1-year anniversary for its Oculus Quest and Rift S headsets, both released in May of 2019. Oculus unveiled that Quest owners have spent over $100 million on content thus far, with more than 20 Quest games making over $1 million in annual revenue. This is critical detail, as platforms must create a flywheel for both gamers and game developers. The more gamers on the platform, the more games developers will create, which will lead to more gamers, and that continues. Now, games are no longer one-dimensional. The internet once again prevails and highlights its power, as it has allowed gamers to connect with other gamers all across the globe. For gaming publishers such as Activision Blizzard, Electronic Arts, and many others, this is important as it has allowed networks to be created, similar to that of traditional social networks. The power of these networks is that it is allowing adjacent opportunities to form. Game streaming is more popular than ever, with companies such as Twitch, Mixer, YouTube Gaming, and Facebook Gaming all emphasizing game streaming on their platforms. People are watching gamers play online just as they would watch Tiger Woods walk down the 18th hole. The ecosystem is growing, and it's evolving, and it's drawing all types of partnerships. Take, for example, Cash App, who partnered with 100 Thieves, a top gaming organization in LA. They partnered to create the Cash App Compound, which is the 100 Thieves headquarters. So overall, gaming is growing rapidly, and there will be a ton of winners within the category over the long term. So with that, I wanted to bring Jeff Chau, who's the founder of GameGether, and he's been on the front line of gaming as a player for Team Liquid, which is one of the highest earning esports teams in the world, and is backed by professional sports team owners such as the Golden State Warriors, backed by Michael Jordan, the owner of the Washington Nationals, and many others. Jeff Chau was also an analyst and commentator at Tencent. He's currently a founder, as mentioned before, but all in all, he's just one of the best in the industry, so I wanted to bring him on. Before that, make sure to subscribe to Inside Scoop, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Alrighty, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing well. Just trying to monitor all the things taking place with COVID-19 and hopefully seeing the work-life balance get back in balance. And how's everything over there?
Oh, going great. I mean, you talk about COVID-19 and I made some investment bets on gaming, and cloud and tech stocks are doing really well, but a segment under technology is gaming, and the gaming stocks are all just on fire right now. I mean, like Arena C, for example, announced that one of their games had 80 million daily active users, and that's grown from 60 million last year. So pretty amazing to see like the impact of COVID onto gaming, and I think it's going to continue to accelerate the entertainment leisure economy that we see in gaming here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is predating COVID, right? In terms of the sheer transition taking place. I mean, for us, we're just big believers that the compounding effect taking place in gaming, when you're looking at all the different computing resources that have been put in place, that's accelerating some of the networking capabilities that are enhancing. So we're seeing that innovation take place both at the game level, but also at the pricing and distribution level, right? So you're seeing the free-to-play battle royale games, which is completely disrupting how pricing models historically used to work. Mm-hmm. And that's opening up the category. And you've shared some awesome stuff in the past in terms of all the different demographics that have joined into the gaming communities and you have just really good perspective on that. So love having you on here to share all the different stuff that you've worked on. But first, I think to really just kick it off is just getting an understanding of you, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so my name is Jeff Chau, and I've been in esports for a little over the past 5 years, and I've done everything in esports. I mean, I was a professional player, so I competed on stage. I've worked with all the top organizations like Team Liquid, um, Immortals Gaming Club, who's backed by like Lionsgate and AEG, and
Hmm.
these billion-dollar companies and investors, and also Team Solomid, which is backed by like Stephen Curry and a bunch of other celebrity and venture capitalists and so on. So I've done a lot of work in the space, and pretty much the whole vertical, from a pro player to a coach to a co-founder of my own esports org. And also was an esports commentator for Tencent Games and Supercell. So Tencent is like the Facebook of China. For those that are
Right.
not familiar, they're the biggest gaming company in the world. And they own Riot Games, which is a maker of League of Legends, which is the largest PC game in the world. And Supercell is also owned by Tencent, I think 90 something percent. And Supercell is one of the most profitable, I think the most profitable company ever per employee, if you look at it for mobile gaming. It's pretty insane, like the growth of mobile gaming the past 2 decades, and also the growth of the entire gaming industry. Just in 50 years, it's gone from nothing to like $150 billion industry. So I'm glad and happy to be part of it. It's been an amazing and fun journey, just working an entire esports industry from commentating at the Asia Games in 2008 in Jakarta, Palembang. I was one of the esports commentators where they had esports as a demonstration medal event for the first time in history. And I've traveled all over the world hosting or being the face and analyst for a lot of the esports games from Brazil to Australia to United Kingdom, all over the world, China to Indonesia to Singapore. Yeah, it's been a blast and an amazing journey for me when it comes to gaming and esports.
Yeah. Where are you seeing the most engagement on esports from a geographic standpoint?
Yeah, so from a geographic standpoint, overall, esports is continuing to grow. If you look at the kind of the big picture, the esports audience was around 335 million in 2017. It's going to grow to 650 million by 2023. And the numbers are constantly growing from 20 to 30% compound annual growth rates. And if you look at geographic, Asia and more of the developing countries, mobile is completely taking off, and it's the largest in revenue, player base. You just talked about like the mobile battle route earlier. Well, that has almost, you know, has easily over 1 billion players worldwide playing mobile battle route mobile games. And if you think about the US and the West, they tend to be a few years, I would say about 5 years to a decade behind what's happening in Asia in terms of the trends. So the West is now really big on PC esports right now, which was something that exploded 20 years ago in Korea and China, and now it's starting to really explode here in the West. And in mobile gaming is starting to make its like footing. It's a very niche community and industry in the West, but it's starting to grow. So it's very interesting to see the geographical differences, and also how the industry tends to follow first movers from across the globe.
Definitely. I mean, a couple of years ago, or even last year, I believe it was when Apple moved the in the App Store, made a dedicated category simply for, or dedicated button at the bottom simply for gaming, and that said a lot about what was happening behind the scenes, right? In terms of the revenue that the mobile games were creating within the App Store. Otherwise, a company like Apple probably would not have made that decision. The esports category, I think one interesting part about that, and I've heard you talk about it, is more the social connection that's built within it. And you're doing something pretty interesting on that side. And I just want everyone to hear a little bit about what you're building, and how you think about that social component as it relates to gaming.
Yeah, so gaming it's esports is skill based. Gaming is also social. Where the reason why esports has taken off is because it's a social phenomenon. If you think about like internet PC cafes back in Korea. So I grew up in Korea. So my esports actually experience goes all the way back to 1999. So I'm kind of dating myself, but that's where I grew up. That's where I learned StarCraft, which is the most popular game in South Korea. It became a national phenomenon. The only thing that was more watched in StarCraft was soccer. I mean, StarCraft was that popular. 1 out of 5 Koreans played it. And because I was so good at the game, it made me instantly cool in high school. So if you think about like the Fortnite kids today, if you're really good at Fortnite, you are a cool kid. It's
Yeah, yeah.
like one of my users explained to me that Fortnite changed his life. Like literally, he's now a really cool kid because he's so good at the game. And this guy was just like a typical gaming nerd. So it's awesome to see like the social mobility that gaming is offering, and esports is a reflection of that, just like traditional sports.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm really excited about. So GameGether is basically where you can book gamers on demand. So that's what I'm building. If you go to GameGether.com, you'll see it. So you can book someone to teach you how to play a game that you just like downloaded or bought. You can book someone to help you rank up, to help you get coaching, and also you can book other people to just to play to have fun. Whether it's if you want to play with like a cosplayer that you're a fan of, or a content creator on YouTube or Twitch that you follow and you're a fan of. So we're basically a skill sharing platform. So we want the gamers on our platform, who we call partners, to share their talents and skills with other people who are willing to pay for it. And it has value, and it's something that is happening in China already. There's a lot of people that are paying to play with each other because they want a good teammate that can communicate, or they want to get better at the game, or they want to play for social reasons. So it's a whole spawn an entirely new kind of social marketplace. And that's what I'm excited. And what I'm most excited about, because I was that gamer when I was a Twitch streamer. So I used to stream as well for 3 years, and I struggled. I mean, I made $500 a month, which is not sustainable. It can't pay my rent or
Right.
my expenses. And this marketplace helps me, um, gain additional income from side hustle. Like one of our partners makes like $200 a month from it, and she's from Georgia, right? And $200 a month is what a teacher makes in Georgia. So it's amazing to see what the global internet and the marketplaces that can spawn from this. And I'm really excited to get this going and continue to grow the user base and partner base.
Definitely. Switching to thinking about the West, right? And thinking about why potentially esports hasn't taken off as much, right? It's still successful in its own right. Do you think possibly because of the traditional sports success here, aka NFL, NBA, all the different sports leagues are pretty much domiciled here? Do you think that has a factor to it, or what gets esports in the West to really accelerate to heights of other countries?
Yeah, I think it's a generational thing. Esports has already exploded. I mean, the audience and the fan base is there. Just in the United States alone, there's estimated to be over 211 million gamers, and out of those 211 million, about 50 million or so are esports fans, or have watched or played an esports game or watched an esports event. So the user base is definitely growing. The interesting thing about gaming and esports is it's growing on the tail end and also on the front end, which means that it's getting younger, and also the demographic also is getting older. You
Mhm.
look at traditional sports, the audience base, the fan base is continuing to get older and older, 40 plus, 50 plus, depending on what sports you look at. With esports and gaming, um, more and more people are actually embracing gaming as a kind of pastime. Similar to the Asian countries where gaming is like a national pastime, where so many people play mobile games together socially. Like you see moms in China, like moms and grandmas playing mobile games with their kids, and we see that trend happening with the U.S. with console games and PC games, and the gaming industry just continues to grow, especially with the young generation. So millennials really kicked it off, right? That's why esports is so massive, because of the millennials like me, and then now Gen Z. They most of the boys and girls are meeting new friends through online games. Like over 50% of them, like teenagers, are meeting friends through just playing video games online. And it's an amazing kind of shift in terms of how they're entertaining themselves. And these multiplayer social games is what's really getting a lot of traction and helping people not only enjoy really fun gameplay but making friends through video games, which is pretty amazing. And that's why esports is continuing to grow. And then to answer your other question, is it's not as big in the West as it is in Asia, but it's growing rapidly. The US is actually um, just a few percentage move points in terms of the audience base is going to dramatically grow the size of the opportunity for esports. So if you look at, for example, in general, in the US is about 20% of gamers are esports fans. In China and Southeast Asia, it's about 50 to 60% of that base. So if the US goes from 20% of their gamers, right, to 211 million to 50% of those people becoming esports fans, and then the esports opportunity has a lot of ways to grow bigger.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely has a network effect there, and kind of a flywheel that takes place. Now thinking of the games themselves, the creators of these games, do you think it's going to be more of the AAA companies coming up with kind of the winners on the West, or are you going to see smaller companies come out with kind of that free to play model and just attract a swath of several million users quickly, like we've been seeing over the last couple of years, where it may not be that AAA publisher or historically AAA publisher that's coming up with the next big game. So, what's your thoughts on which publisher, not necessarily the names, but the dynamics between the large and the small?
Yeah, so there's two angles with this. I think AAA will continue to do well. A lot of the AAA is a big in the West. It's a very big brand. Like Call of Duty is a very big brand. League of Legends now is a very big brand. League of Legends started out as a nobody, and Riot Games grew that game to be the largest PC game in the world. I mean, Fortnite is also a game that was not popular when it launched. It was a kind of a player versus environment. You were playing with teammates against zombies and monsters that attacked your fort. That's why it's called Fortnite. And now that game has 350 million players, right? Astonishing growth, and they converted it to a battle royale. And the idea of the battle royale came from a mod. So a lot of these esports games are modifications of existing games. So in terms to answer your question, it could go both ways, but in general, historically, it's been the mods that are successful. For example, League of Legends, the largest esports in the world right now, has 100 million unique viewers that watch the world championships of this title. It was a modification or a mod of a game from Warcraft 3 that Blizzard owned. Right, Warcraft 3 created this new kind of genre. Like these map editors basically created this game called Defense of the Ancients, or Dota, and then League was a copy of that. So League took that concept and then just made it better, and then made it gaming as a service. So they're the first ones that innovated on free to play model in terms of PC online multiplayer, and then they made it free to play, and it was games as a service, and they released new content, new skins, etc. And that's how League became a $1 billion hit. And that was a mod, right? If you look at the other esports like Fortnite and PUBG, those were mods of a game from Arma, where it was a shooter game, and they created modifications, and then basically got into another game, H1Z1, and it was a battle royale modification where people didn't fight against zombies or AI enemies. They fought against each other, and it was like a free for all survival type of game against human players. And that then spawned the entire genre. That's the biggest genre in the world now, is battle royale, which is basically Hunger Games, the movie, but in a game, right? So that genre has 1 billion players on mobile and hundreds of millions on PC. It is clearly the largest genre. So it basically replaced what League of Legends was. The MOBA genre, which is the multiplayer online battle arena, is the second largest genre, which was like the first generation of esports. Now the second generation of esports is now this like massively online multiplayer. 100 people jump in an island and then fight for survival. Pretty amazing to see what's happening, how the esports scene has evolved into, now it's even more multiplayer. So that's the trend with esports, is it gets more social, more multiplayer, and then more competitive, and then people like love to play it and they love to watch it.
Right. It's just bringing in more audience, which is bringing in more gamers, which is bringing in more audience. No, interesting phenomenon. And I still think even at this stage, it's probably still underappreciated by by the different observers of investments and things like that. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about and just speak about is the streaming component that is potentially on the horizon, right? Where Google has Stadia, Microsoft I think has X Cloud that they're developing, and different streaming platforms that will eventually come about. How do you think about that, and does that bring in even an additional gamer into the scene, similar to how mobile did, just simply because you don't need the hardware component anymore that you needed in the past. And I think that is a friction point for more console playing, is the purchase of the hardware and the setup that natural friction that takes place there. Mobile gaming is in our hand, right? So being able to develop content that's mobile friendly has really driven that market. But streaming, how ultimately, how are you thinking about the streaming component and what that ultimately does to the marketplace?
Yeah, I think once 5G and the technology catches up, it's going to be massive. People are joking and making fun of it right now because cloud is not able to provide the latency that's needed. If you think about fighting games and other type of esports, the frames per second matters a lot. You want to hit close to 60 to have a good experience, but for competitive esports, you want to hit 120 frames a second. And a lot of the monitors, that's why they're 144 hertz monitors and so on. With cloud, it's going to be the post-mobile world is how I look at it from a long-term perspective. If you think about like mobile gaming and why mobile gaming is so big, a lot of Westerners that don't play mobile games and they have the money to spend on PC games or console games and buy this really expensive like console hardware, they don't really understand like why esports took off, and it's because the internet is the leisure economy of the world.
Hmm.
Especially true for the underserved, younger and underserved populations. So you think about how PC esports took off in Asia first. Asia was much poorer than the United States 10 years ago, they took off because internet PC cafes spawned all over Brazil, Korea, China, where it became, by 2011, it was a $19 billion industry just in Asia alone. It had 350,000 PC cafes. And that basically reduced the barriers to entry to online PC gaming, which then took off and exploded and created the esports industry and gaming industry that we see today. But the same thing happened in Brazil. The PC cafes was subsidized by the government, and it basically allowed 60% of the country's poor to get access to the internet, and that's how esports took off in Brazil. So if anything, the internet populations of the world who are underserved is a reason why gaming and esports is taking off. And that's why the free-to-play game, like you said, is taking off, because they're serving underserved markets that no one's really
Right.
paying attention to. And then as they grow up, they get more purchasing power, and then the industry then becomes what it is today. So in terms of cloud is basically that new version of basically being able to reach underserved internet populations. If you look at smartphone penetration rates, India and all these countries aren't even close to 80% or even 90% penetration. Once it happens in the next 5 years and everyone owns a smartphone, and then the cloud technology catches up with 5G and the latency and so on, then cloud gaming will be much cheaper and much easier, even lower barrier to entry because there's no installing. You literally just open up the game and you jump into a game with your friend. There's no
Exactly.
loading time. So the technology is definitely amazing. It has a lot of promise, and it reminds me of what mobile has done for the gaming industry. If you look at how much mobile is now $100 billion industry, right? It's bigger. It's 25% bigger than PC and console gaming put together, right? It's bigger than Hollywood mobile gaming by itself, and it's growing at like 20-30% year over year. I mean, it's going to be $100 billion per App Annie, $100 billion industry by itself this year, with total gaming going to be around 150 billion or more. So cloud gaming, what's cloud gaming going to do is going to accelerate that. It's basically going to allow people to play multiplayer games, and doesn't matter what device you have, you just need a fast 5G connection or fast internet connection. Doesn't matter what phone you have, what iOS version. And that's why Fortnite became so popular, because it's cross-play. It's fully cross-play. So a mobile player can play with a PS4, an Xbox player can play with PS4 and play with a PC. There's no friction between how people can play together and socialize through the game. And that's what held back console gaming a lot. If you think about it, PS4 players could not connect with Switch players, and Switch players couldn't connect with Xbox, and Xbox and Sony has this whole rivalry where they don't let players cross-play with each other. It's still an issue right now, actually, for certain games, but Fortnite is big enough to say, hey, this is what our users want. You need to open up cross-play. And the fan base, basically gave Sony a lot of crap because they're trying to ecosystem lock Fortnite and not allow the, friends of, PS4 buddies to play with Xbox buddies. And then they had to then take that down because their audience base was not happy about that.
Right.
And that's what Cloud's going to do. Cloud's going to unlock all of that. And on top of that, be cheaper than mobile, right? So it's going to be a subscription-based business. Games as a service will continue to evolve. And that's why, Microsoft, Google, everyone is gunning towards cloud. Tencent as well. Because if you think about what's going to matter long term, and this is like the long term thesis for gaming, is if you own these verticals, you completely own the audience, right? That's why, like for example, C, which is Garena, C Limited, which one of the biggest growing tech stocks in the past 2 years. They grew 250% last year, and now this year they doubled already in stock price to now $83. They're building their own streaming platform as well. And what you're going to see is whoever owns the IP, which is the game, that's the most important. You have to own the IP. Then you own the cloud. Then you own the streaming for it, which cloud runs off streaming as well. And then you have then you also own the marketplace on top of that. So you basically have a complete ecosystem lock of that user base. And that's what they're gunning for, because whoever has that lock, those users will probably stay within that ecosystem. That's why Xbox is pretty aggressive in that area. Google is trying to now have their own game studios. Amazon has Twitch, and now they also have their Amazon studios. It's released a new game called Crucible. And that's what these companies are going after is once they achieve that kind of ecosystem lock for this young gaming population that has a lot of spending power, then it'll turn into multi-billion-dollar opportunity for them over the next decade.
No, definitely. I mean, we're going to stop there. That's a lot of punch that you just gave. Good stuff. Don't want to run past kind of the 20-minute mark here. We could keep going on for a long time because it's just so interesting. And again, I think to reemphasize, I think the gaming category is somewhat underappreciated because it's all the things that are happening outside of it that's creating the opportunity of the future for it. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the games themselves. It's more the technology that some of these large players, again, the big cloud computing companies, and the hardware in addition to, right, the NVIDIAs of the world that are then powering some of the resources that we're talking about. And all of that is funneling into kind of what these games can do and where they can do it for us. So again, I think the opportunity continues to be massive. This is why we're big believers in the gaming segment as a whole. And more importantly, we appreciate the companies that own the content just because they have a nice strategic place within that ecosystem that we're talking about. But with that, I wanted to maybe give you a couple seconds to tell everybody where they could potentially reach out to you. If they needed anything to check out maybe your site, just give you a couple moments for that before we wrap.
Yeah, cool. The best way to reach me is on Twitter. So it's SJENERIS, so S Generous. And also I have a Medium as well. So definitely read a lot of the articles that I publish there's tons of data, tons of stats. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just Jeff Chau, JEFCHAU. Cool.
Jeff, I appreciate it once again, and we're definitely going to have you back on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So that was a good conversation with Jeff Chau. We have to have a round two for sure. A lot of insights that he shared. So great conversation. If you have any questions for Jeff Chau himself, any questions for us around gaming or any other categories from our podcast, feel free to reach out. It's info@avoryco.com. Again, that's info@avoryco.com. You can reach out to us directly. Again, if you want to get in touch with Jeff himself, understand more about the company that he's building. But with that, I appreciate you guys listening. Subscribe to the channels on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or follow me on Twitter @_Sean David. And we can be in touch. Okay, have a good one.